worth seeing. So thank you for joining us today. Hey, Imram, thanks for coming. I don't know if you noticed the Startup Visa program. If you're interested in that, come on, grab that. You might be happy out there in Silicon Valley. I don't know. uh, rest of you, welcome everyone. Nice to see some of you back. We're going to be talking about idea validation, and I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff I take people through in our workshop. But I definitely want to make this as interactive as possible. A few of you have been here before, meaning that you know that if you ask questions, you're going to get some great advice, some interesting answers, some things you haven't thought of before, or at least hopefully. And we'll get some interaction from the group. So you're going to get out of this what you put into it. So ask questions, be interactive, and I will make this as learning as possible. I have helped and coached so many startups. It's in the thousands now because I do this all day, every day. I've been doing this for 5 years. I want just you to understand that I've kind of seen almost everything. Maybe not everything, but almost everything. So nothing's going to shock me. Lots of companies come up with illegal stuff or gray stuff or whatnot that has moved to legality since then. My thought is I need to help people run their business and validate their idea. So don't spend millions of dollars launching a product that you don't know is going to succeed. So let's start with it. Start with that. So this is Trevor. Real story, real name, fake picture. Well, the picture's real, but so Trevor had a problem. See, you probably can't read this here. That's too bad. I got to change that font. He didn't have time to go see a stylist. So he Googled for a solution. Haircut service at home, and he found a local startup, Clippers. Clippers is anytime, anywhere haircuts here in Toronto. Check them out, getclippers.com, by the way. And he found a solution. So he found the site and signed up. But what he didn't know was the website only launched one day earlier. This is not true of Clippers. That's just an example of a local startup here in Toronto. I like to give them a shout out when I'm doing this. That the website only launched one day earlier, that it only took an hour to build, and it cost $0. Oh, and that there's no product, and the company doesn't really exist yet. So when we got this sign up, what did we do? We got Trevor on the phone and said, "Hey, why are you looking for this service? Why would you use this service? How would you use this service to make your life easier? What are the minimum features you would need in the service?" We're looking at Trevor. You need a full beard thing. You just need a trim. You need a complete stylist. What do you need to be happy with this solution? And what's your biggest problem around it? So Trevor bought the real service when it launched, but this just goes to show you as an example how to validate, an example of validation long before you launch a product. That there are techniques and tools now available for you to validate your idea without spending a lot of money, without launching a product and figuring out whether it's a good idea or not. So most startups, no matter what the industry, fail. But it doesn't have to be that way. We're used to think that the fact that startups are failing because they're doing crazy or difficult or risky things. If they're willing to follow a different process of thinking about how to build a company, though, there's a better way, and it's called lean startup. So what does it mean to be lean? It's called lean startup because of something called lean manufacturing, an idea that has changed how physical objects are built, and it came out of Toyota and GE in the 70s. So the question of our time is not, can something be built, but should it be built? So the lean startup, I don't have my headphones on, but I guess I don't need them because there's no one I'm talking to. It just felt weird not having them on. So the lean startup is a set of best practices for, as quickly as possible, discovering what customers truly want, how can you waste less time building a startup, and how do you become sustainable as a business. So we have a belief that if we were just in the right place at the right time with the right idea, with the right astrological sign and a the right entrepreneurial attributes and a powerful reality distortion field and a really good product idea, build a really great team and a real high quality product. If you just do all of those things, just all of those, you're guaranteed to make money. Well, the reality is we all know or have heard of lots of entrepreneurs that seem like they were in the right place at the right time with the right idea and a great team, but they still failed. So recognizing that just having a vision, just having a plan is not enough to ensure entrepreneurial success. You know, I can't tell you how many people, how many emails, how many calls I get with entrepreneurs who have the best idea ever. It's going to change the world. It's the best idea ever. It's $1 billion idea, and probably a bunch of you in the room feel the same way. And I'm not trying to mock you, but like I said, I deal with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. So just because you have an idea doesn't mean you're guaranteed success. We want to reconceive what it means to have a business plan. So instead of writing these long documents and spending hours pontificating at a whiteboard, instead, I want you to realize that a business plan is nothing more than a set of assumptions, a series of guesses about what might happen in the future. And if we're willing and have the courage, we can quickly and quantitatively verify which assumptions are brilliant and which ones actually turn out to be crazy. So what's the first step here? Well, simply write it down. The act of writing forces you to consider things you may have previously glossed over. And I'm not talking about writing a business plan. And I'm talking about answering a few key questions so that we can go out and start testing right away. These are your assumptions. And the sooner you can test them, the less risk you will have when launching your product. You can start with the questions like, and we're going to go through a bunch of these later, the ones we're talking in the business model canvas, which we're going to go through, things like, who is your customer? And if you say everyone, you're already setting yourself up for a tough time. Because, if it's everyone, how do you target everyone? Everyone has someone who's 90 has a different message than someone who's 10. And hangs out in a different place and has a different social media platform or marketing tool and all those things. So the more people you have to target, the more expensive your marketing becomes. Keep that in mind. Be sure to be specific. For example, if your customer is a business, answer, what kind of business? How big or small is the typical business? Is it in a particular market? What is the title of the buyer of your product or service? What are the problems you are solving? So many entrepreneurs think about the product first, and then they fret about features and launch the product. Then they wonder why the product has trouble getting traction. My suggestion is, start with the problem. What this means is being very explicit about the problems your product solves. By writing down these problems, you can validate whether your customer also sees them as problems, and more importantly, whether customers think they are problems worth solving. How does your product solve these problems? Only after writing down the problem do you move on to the product. From here, you tie the value of your product directly back to the customer problems. How does solving their problems make their life better? Does it make more money? Does it look better? This new coat makes me look great. Look at my hat. I love it. What are the features of your product? The features need to be more than cool. They need to solve a specific problem. The more quantitative, time saved, money made, the better. So I encourage you to think about a minimal viable product and limit the feature set as much as possible. And, we're going to talk about what a minimal viable product here is. It's different than what you think. You need to provide just enough value for some customers to buy. So, write down the answers to the following questions. So we're going to kind of take a look at the business model canvas today, but we're going to just gloss over that because a lot of you have seen it. I have other stuff to talk about it. But we're really going to focus on the right-hand side because this is what you're really trying to validate. Who are you going to sell to? What value do they feel they have? What's the relationship you have with the client? And how are you going to deliver your value to them? What are the channels? And what are your revenue streams? How do they pay you? So these are the things you really want to validate when you're focusing on your idea at an early stage at least. So customer segments. I'm just going to briefly go through a bunch of these. Hey, Craig, welcome. Nice to see you here. Perfect. Thanks for the questions. I'm going to answer a bunch of those at the end, and the rest of you, please put your questions. The more questions you ask, the less presentation I will give you, and and the more interaction I'll give. So we'll look at it that way. So customer segments. Let's briefly go through the building blocks that I just mentioned and start with customer segments. These are the people or organizations for which you're creating value. So this includes simple users and paying customers. So who do you serve? For whom are you creating value? What products and services are you offering each of these customer segments? What are your customer archetypes? The output should be a list of personas according to customer segment. You should be thorough with these personas, how they think and feel about your product. And, I always suggest that you should have at 3 to 5 personas. If you're a two-sided marketplace, you need at least 3 on each side or each part of that market. And if you have questions about it, we'll talk. So now that we've identified who we believe your users are and who you're serving and each of those people in the value chain, what value do you deliver to them? These are the bundles of products or services that create value for the customer. What are you offering them? What is it getting done for them? Why do they care? So what problem are you solving for them, or what jobs do you do for them? Why are they excited about your product? What's your value proposition? So finding the value proposition. I encourage entrepreneurs to focus less on features and more on explaining value proposition for their product. What does that mean? A value proposition is the expected gains that a customer would receive from using your product. For example, it could be time saved, making more revenue, or maybe some social benefit like looking good or feeling good. Whatever it is, these value propositions are directly tied to the problems that you previously discovered. Hey, Tinder, it helps you find single people near you that are interested. What problem is that solving? Channels describe which touch points you're interacting with your customers and delivering value. So how do your customers find you? How do they buy? And how do you deliver? Which channels are to be focused on to reach the desired customer segments, and how are these channels integrated? Which ones are the most cost effective? A company can reach its clients either through its own channels or partners' channels. So out of this section, you should be figuring out a list of all channels that are linked to your corresponding segments and personas, and make sure those channels provide you with enough visibility into each of those personas, if that makes sense. Thank you for the question. I'll be checking them out in a minute. Customer relationships. So customer relationships outline the types of relationships you establish with your customer. So what type of relationship does the customer have with you? Think about it for a minute. When you want to go buy something online, are you just going to Amazon, doing a Google search, reading a review, buying something, and leaving? You don't really want a relationship? Or are you buying, an expensive ERP system for your company and want a completely different type of relationship? You want intimate knowledge of the product, the sales cycle, the support team, and what kind of things you're going to get. So what type of relationship do you maintain with each of your customer segments? What are the expectations of your customers? How do you establish them? What would be the associated costs for those relationships? You can decide what relationship you want to have with your customers. As a company, you can opt for a dedicated personal assistant, self-service, automated services, co-creation, all sorts of ways to do that. So it's really up to you. And last but definitely not least, revenue streams. Revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. How do you get paid? Simply put, who pays you for what? What are customers willing to pay and for what value? How would they prefer to pay? Is it credit card? Is it online? Is it cash? Do they want to use Apple Pay? How are they currently paying? How does each stream add up to the total revenue? Are you doing memberships and courses, and are you on a freemium model? Are you have a different add-on however your model is, you know, whether it's asset sales, subscription fee, leasing, licensing, advertising, these revenue streams should be linked to the personas or segments and value propositions. Because some people may be leasing it, some people may be buying it, some, you may be getting, if you have an app, you may be doing some advertising in the app. So each of your personas would relate to one of these or multiple one of these streams. So you want to take a look at those. A lot of people fail to do that. So answer these key questions and write the following responses down. How do you acquire customers? After you've landed a new customer, how do you plan to relate to your customer and manage that relationship, if at all? How do you charge your customers? What is your revenue model? And how much do you charge your customers? And then we use this answers to this and the questions here to fill in the right side of the business canvas. And that kind of maps out and gives us an idea. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but that just kind of gives you, now they've written it down, that was just step one. Time and resources are scarce. There isn't time to agonize over details that in the end may not matter. So for that reason, we suggest lean market validation, which helps successful teams get just enough information and data to make decisions and then make them. So get just enough valid information from customer interviews and other sources of data and then make a decision. In the end, you'll never get to 100% certainty, but get as close as possible. I like to get about 80% certainty. Will get you most of the way there and give you the confidence you need to take the next step. And then most of what we write down is going to be assumptions. So all the writing you do, the discussions and debating you have are assumptions. Teams often take these discussions and what is in their head as fact. So when they are simply assumptions, they need to be tested. I like to think of the scientific method when reviewing ideas and always think about how do we test this? How do we test this? How do we test this? I often like to see teams debate minor details and waste valuable time rather than just making a guess and then going out and testing. You can debate for weeks trying to figure out how to test something rather than just taking a stab at it, running out and testing it, and coming back a couple of days later and getting answers and moving forward. So getting it out into the real world and testing it as much as possible. So whether it's the right idea, it's important just to make a guess and get started because your assumption may turn out to be wrong. And you'll spend all this time, not to mention your toll on team dynamics, arguing what way to do it, debating something that in the end doesn't matter. So how do we know what you wrote in each block is true? So we've asked these questions. We wrote them down in the business canvas. So we check each response in the business model canvas against the following criteria. How do you know what you wrote in each block is true? Have you made an assumption, or do you have solid evidence in the form of documented facts? In the case you have facts, label the response as fact and make a note that your evidence. Hey, it's fact. I got this. I talked to clients. This is what our competitors are charging. This is the information I've got from wherever. In the case that you have made the assumption, label the response as an assumption. And the next step is to list all the assumptions in a table like this. Question, is it a fact or is it an assumption? And once we have this, it becomes easy to test our assumptions because we know most of people skip this all the time. So now we want to get out and test the assumptions. So where do you start? I don't want to go too far into it because we're probably already, we're already almost a half hour into this, and I want to start answering your questions soon. So start with your network. I'm often asked how teams can easily find prospects to speak with. I recommend start with your own network and the networks of friends, mentors, investors, potential clients. We have a Slack group. We used to do live events. You can join the Slack group and talk to people. You find your networks online or at live events when they start coming back and start talking to them. Most people will do a Zoom call and start asking them, who else should I be talking to? So basically, you've got to interview your target audience, and if you want a list of questions, I'll go through that. So ask a lot of whys, and this is what people fail a lot to do is, why is by far the most important question you can ask. You say, what is your biggest problem? And then they'll say, oh, my biggest problem is I'm an auto repair shop. My biggest problem is customers don't know the size of their tires before they come in, so I don't know if I have stuff in stock. Okay, why? And well, because they never tell me. Why? Well, because we don't ask. The person at the front desk doesn't ask. And why? So once you drill down, you're trying to figure out. You get to the problem. At the beginning, you just write. If you don't drill deep, oh, okay, that's your biggest problem is you don't know the tires. Well, when you can figure out, get to the root of the problem. This is not a great example, but you get an idea of digging down. You get to the root of the problem and why it impacts all these other things, and it really gives you a bigger picture of the work and will uncover things that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. And this is one of the most important lessons, I try to teach people. Liking your product is not the same as buying your product. Validating your product idea with prospective customers is very subjective. There's no right way or wrong way. In fact, because people are generally nice and want to please you, especially, if tell them you're a startup and it's your idea or their friends, you need to be careful about accepting their answers at face value. When someone tells you enthusiastically, it sounds great or that's an interesting idea, your first reaction should be something like, why? It's important to understand that someone liking your idea is not the same as buying your product, and your challenge during your lean market validation process is eliminating as much of these false positives as possible. Asking them things like, what have you paid for something like this in the past? What have you done to solve this problem in the past? If they haven't taken action to solve this problem in the past, odds are they're not, motivated to take action in the future. So when you're talking about validation and you're specifically overall at a business idea, I like to validate all aspects of a business, and we always be validating. But if you're just talking about your business idea as a whole, you need to validate the problem. Is the problem worth solving? If the users don't think it's a major problem, your solution won't be appealing. Validate the market. Some users might agree that this is a problem we're solving, but are there enough of them to make up a market for your product? And validating the product. The problem might exist, but does your product actually solve it? Validating willingness to pay. This is the big one. There might be a demand and it might be a great product, but will people actually open up their wallets and pay for it? So these are the things we really want to look at when we're validating. So I want to take a quick look at what questions we have here, so we can go through a few of these things. This is great. I got a few. There's a lot of stuff I do in validation right at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you a story recently that something I'm doing. We're working on. Actually, let me see if I've got the presentation here. I think I do. So I have a team. We're working on an app, and let me. I don't want to do it that way. Let me just fix up my slideshow here so I can share this. So we're working on an app. So I got our team together. We've been doing brainstorming, figuring out. They've templated a whole bunch of things. And, I thought, I think we're moving in the wrong direction. But, I teach people how to validate. So let's start there. So we, here we go. Hopefully you can see this. So knowing that I work with startups every day, and we had a list of features and functions in our app that we had planned, I went out and basically wanted the answers to these questions. And I'm just showing this slide. I didn't show these particular slides to anybody during my validation process, but I went out and talked to people. The best startup app would include what features? What is the hardest part of your day? What is something you struggle with? What is something I wish I had? What would save the most time? So these are questions or answers I wanted to ask when I'm talking to my startups, because I think this is what would be in a valuable app, right? And I'm thinking, what would people pay for? I always ask the question, what would you pay $5 for? If you're not willing to pay $5 for this feature, it shouldn't be in my app, and I shouldn't be building it. So same thing. What do you struggle with? Something I wish I had as a product feature. What would save me the most amount of time? What's the hardest part of your day? So I interviewed with a bunch of questions I had, a bunch of startups, and I got some surprising answers, but startup needs, same thing. I'm trying to figure out their needs. So I did questions around what would they pay for, what their needs are, and if they had an app that could do anything, what would it do? And I use basically a tool called feature sorting cards. So this is a technique where you use sorting cards to find patterns that help to understand user priorities. So here's an example. Features I like my bed to have. If you're talking about a bed, an embedded massage, a removable back, a heated mattress. So basically, this whole concept is, and this is kind of how this works. So I'm going to leave this up here so you can read this while I'm talking about it. So basically, I took the features that we had mapped out and I put them on cards and I started interviewing companies. And what do you think was the shocking? I got a shocking response as I went through this and started asking people these questions and started figuring out what features they would want in the app. The overwhelming response I got, and I never thought I would get this. I thought, my team went off in the wrong direction. I'm just validating this just to see what's going on. Number one response: who the fuck wants to download an app? Why are you building an app? No one wants an app. And I'm like, holy crap, I never even thought about that, right? So we're starting with assumptions that that people want, this core thing. And it turns out that, building a bunch of these functions and features into a website with a membership model where people could just go and get it, with the user at any time on any device is way better than having to download an app and putting it on your thing. So we kind of pivoted in that direction, but wouldn't have done that without starting this and start figuring out what your assumptions and whatnot are. So I'm going to start jumping to some of your questions, and hopefully with feature sorting cards, you get the idea, right? If you take, about 20 or 30 or 10 cards and a few blank ones, and you go start talking to your potential target audience, wherever they happen to be, meeting over coffee or whatnot, and what are what's the most important features, what are the most important functions, and you can really start to see patterns as to the key concerns of people in your industry. So keep that in mind as I start answering some of these questions here. So I think, let me see, what do you say, Craig? You're looking for some really good resource on MVP creation. Craig, are you still here? Looks like you are. Good. What suggestions do you have for resources, templates, webinars I can access? So when you say MVP, I mentioned MVP earlier. Perfect, Craig. Thanks for sticking around. So MVP is whatever gets you to the next level of learning. So an MVP could be a survey, could be a website page, could be a drawing on a napkin. So depending where you are. Where are you at your MVP level? There are, I use a tool sometimes called Balsamic. Balsamic. Yeah, I want to make sure it's with a Q. I don't have it off the top of my head. If you Google that, it'll come up. For prototyping, there's a prototyping on paper app on iOS, and I'm sure there's stuff on Google where you can just kind of pencil in. There's a bunch of templates out there at different sites where you can prototype different wireframes. So I like to just do it in PowerPoint if you can. You just drop some iPhone or iOS or screens onto PowerPoint and walk someone through it. So it really depends what you're trying to do from an MVP creation point of view. So if you can kind of let me know a little bit more about it, I can kind of drill down a little bit further. Plus, email me. I can send you a few links depending on what you're trying to do on that. Thanks, Craig. Perfect, Craig. I'll get back to you on that. Thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn. Mosh from Toronto. Interested to hear if you're familiar with Balloonery.io. I'm not off the top of my head, but I'll take a look. Anybody know Balloonery.io? I'm trying to find Chrome here in my browser so I can look it up. Balloonery.io. Validate your business, create a landing page, generate traffic, get feedback. Okay. I've never used their specific platform, but so this is part of one of the things I do. Create a landing page. There's a bunch of things that do this. You can do it yourself in WordPress. You can do it with Instapages, Unbounce. There's a whole bunch of tools to be able to create a free landing page and then drive traffic to it. So, want to test any idea? There's another one. I'll look at it later. I can't remember right now if I can find it. There was another tool where for a very reasonable fee, they will survey 100 people in your niche market, and you'll develop a little survey and give you feedback whether your idea is valid or not, which is interesting. But I like to create a web page and drive traffic to it and see what happens. And I'd spend $150 or so on Facebook ads and drive traffic, or Google AdWords ads, drive traffic to the site and see what converts. And for me, I like a 3-page site, meaning if you land on my site, you're going to get shoes. I don't know. Here's my course. Sure. Here's my course, or here's my shoes. It doesn't really matter. And here's the logo, and it looks great. Pick your size. Order now. You order now. You go to the next page. You pick your size and color. I want my shoes my feet are big, so size 12, and I want the red ones for TorontoStarts. So click order now. That next page says, oh, sorry, we're out of stock in your area, or these are back ordered right now, or whatever. Give us your email and we'll get back to you when you can. So definitely do that. Those people that click through to that third page, where, at the beginning, my shoes are $129.99. The second page, you pick the red shoe and the size, buy now, 120. You see the taxes and all that stuff. The third page, they would have bought. So this is just an ID validation. We've all done this before. Some people think that kind of thing is scammy. My thought on this is, as long as you're taking money and you're not out and out lying to people, like this is the shoe you want to sell, and great, take their email. And now those people that emails you get, those are your potential early adopters. Those are the people who are excited about your product. Those are the people you go back to and interview, like Trevor at the beginning of at our presentation. You go back and talk to him and ask him all those problem questions and things that we didn't get a chance to get to, but that's how you validate it. It's the same type of thing. You could use the service. I don't know what their pricing is. I'm just taking a look. Free. Hey, I got a free service. Interesting. $14.95. Yeah. Try it. There's a bunch of other ones out there. Imran, I'm going to get to that next. Moshe, if you have any other questions about that, I don't see anybody said they've used it, but I would just use Unbounce or Instapages and build it myself. But if they're adding value here by driving traffic and doing the Google ads, then that might save you some time and money. Let me go back to some at the top here. How do we find they want to pay a subscription model or on demand initially before launch, A/B testing? So how do you test if you're charging optimal price? So I like to do the exact same thing. We're talking about landing pages. So why not test multiple landing pages, multiple ads? One landing page says $29.99 and one landing page says $199.99, or whatever it is, the price range you want, and see what converts. And you can do the math, right? So if 10 people buy $29.99 and 2 people buy the $299, you probably, you're breaking even there. So you decide. Oh, actually, no. If 2 people buy the $300 one is better. So it's a question of it's easy to experiment with that. Depending on where you want to be. If you're establishing right out and you're not sure if you want to do a monthly subscription model, you might want to start on a per charge basis, or you might offer both, where right at the get-go, just make it attractive to go with a monthly subscription rather than the per charge basis on your month. So as I'm seeing at Balloonery here, they've got options. Let me just share that screen so you can see it. Just make it a pricing plan. They've got the free, they've got the pro, they've got the enterprise. So you could do one-off. I only need one service, $200, or get the monthly subscription, which gets you whatever, which is $200, but it gets you 1.5, or it gets you $150 a month. Your first one is $50 off, or there's a lot of ways to do that. But if you haven't launched yet, I would do a couple of different ad campaigns and see which one converts better on pricing, pointing them to different different landing pages. So let me stop sharing there. Done and done. Getting caught up here. How do you validate subscription model? Same question. Is LinkedIn better for validating professionals and business owners, or Google Ads or Facebook? All right. It depends. It depends what you're selling. It depends where your community are. If you're B2B, LinkedIn is generally better. More and more people are moving away from Facebook, but Facebook's targeting techniques are amazing. Don't discount them. I always start generally with Facebook because at $5 an ad, you can do 20 tests for $100 and find out within a few days what marketing message, what target audience, what messaging is working, what are people clicking on, what's not working. And then once you figure that out, then you take that and take it to the other platforms, because Google Ads is going to cost you more money. But if you know what age group, what keywords, what message people are clicking on, you don't mind spending the more money because you're going to get the higher conversion rate. So I really like starting with Facebook because it's easier. You can target just men, just women, certain geographic area, certain interests. If you have a mailing list, if you have anything, you can upload it and build a lookalike audience and advertise to them. Basically, I don't know if you don't know what that is. I know I have a decent mailing list, but if you have a mailing list of over 1,000, you upload it, Facebook will find all those emails, find those accounts on Facebook, and build what they call lookalike audience based on all their interests and information they have on those people, which is a fair bit. So they can take that 1,000 people and build a lookalike audience of 100,000 or 200,000 that you can start targeting towards. So I like to start there, but once you've once you have the messaging down and the graphics and whatnot, move to a different platform. LinkedIn is great for B2B. Google is great for intent, right? You know people are searching for that at the right time when your Google word comes up. So it's way more valuable when you have search intent information than just randomly putting a Facebook ad in front of somebody at lunchtime or whenever it happens to be. Before launching, is Facebook good for A/B testing, and is 20 okay to amount to put ads for? Yeah, so exactly. I would spend $100 on some tests there, and not $100 test. A few tests at $20, a few tests at $10. Basically, when you're starting out, try some $5 tests, see what people are clicking on, and then mature it. Test the color, test the messaging, test the headline, test the body. All of these things. What I like to do is, my growth hacking course, we talk about, testing landing pages, driving traffic to landing pages, see what converts. But the pro tip is, testing it at the ad level, because most of your landing pages have a headline, have a main graphic, and body text, and all ads have the same thing. So you test what converts, what people click on at that level, and then change all your stuff at your back end to match that. What people are clicking on, the messaging they're seeing. Most people forget that part. They leave the back end the same, and they don't get the conversions they want. It's great discovery you had on customers, not necessarily wanting native apps. Yes, I know, it's funny. Like, I didn't even think. Why would you think nobody wants a freaking app? It's something we should all validate for our businesses and not just simply assume. Absolutely. That's why, and getting honest feedback. And the people hope that I build relationships with, they know I want honest feedback because I'm giving them honest feedback. So it's like, why the heck? I don't want to download another app. So, with an AI-based product, I need to explain it quite a bit. Which is the risk of exposing it? How do I protect it? Okay, so this is always a risk. It depends. One, if you can, you should be filing for patent. Check out PCKIP law. They do patent law, and I think they do provisional patents starting around $1,500. If you need more than that, talk to Alex Koch from Insight Legal. She's a fantastic lawyer, does all sorts of stuff, but they'll get you started. Second, that aside, if you're afraid, get as much IP protection as possible. Secondly, that means you're not ready to go launch, right? If you're afraid to put your idea out there because you think people will steal it, you got to put it out there at some point. And so at this point, it becomes execution. And it's okay to be in stealth mode for a while, depending on what you're doing, because, if you're solving a niche issue and someone else, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to go after that, you probably want to be as close to production or beyond that as possible before you let the cat out of the bag. So what you want to do at this point is, if you're not willing to talk about your product, then talk about the problems in the problem area. Join the groups that are talking about, I don't know, I'm just going to say crime, AI to solve crime. I'm just putting some randomly out there, and talk to the people who are the forensic people, the people who are using AI software, the people who are using tape, find out the problems, find out this, find out that. So another way I like to look at it, and this is one of my growth hacking tips for everyone here, is for you, Moish, start a conference. Put it 6 months out, a virtual conference or an in-person conference, a year out, and you're going to say, you are a conference for AI in forensic science. Again, I'm just forensic science is what I went with. And now you build a one-page landing page, like we said before, where you're collecting emails, and you're talking about your conference. Tickets can be free, or you can charge. I don't really care. What matters here is you put that on your LinkedIn, you put that on your profile so people see it. You start reaching out to people. Hey, I'm running the Forensic Science AI conference next year, and I'm looking for I'm talking to everybody in the area about the problems they're experiencing. So, you talk to all the forensic scientists about the problems they're having with AI and the tech and what they're using to solve. And keep that in mind that you're trying to develop the content for the conference. You're looking for speakers. There's a lot you have to offer people on the other end, and you share the survey results with the people who take it. So you can talk to the consumers of the product plus the AI competition all along that way, and gather a whole lot of information. All the meanwhile, sharing it or not sharing it, depending on how you want to do it, but building those relationships. And my thought with this kind of plan is, when you're ready to launch 6 months or a year down the road, when you have that conference, you're in a room full of 100 people or virtually who are looking at you as a leader in this field, who's brought speakers, panelists together to talk about the answers to the biggest problems that is experienced. And guess what? I have an AI product that solves that problem, by the way, and since you all have it, why don't you buy it? It's like shooting fish in a barrel while you're there. So keep that in mind. That's kind of a growth hack, as an idea validation. It gets you talking to a bunch of people, gives them a reason to talk to you rather than selling, rather than acquire, and you don't necessarily have to talk about your product till a bunch of time in the future. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Jay. That is, someone can write up a list of sites that recommend prototyping besides balloonery. That'd be a good idea. We'll see if someone can do that. How do I protect it? So, Moish, did that answer your question about IP? Let me know, because this is a hard one. It's always a hard one, and I don't want to disparage any particular educational institute, but a lot of people coming out of Ryerson and entrepreneurs have the steal other people's ideas mindset. So keep that in mind. But execution is what matters. Someone's probably already working on your idea, and the longer you keep it hidden and don't do stuff about it, the more ahead of you they will be. I had people argue me about that once. I was at an event. I just delivered a presentation. We had a big panel, and someone came up to talk to me about their idea. And they said it was so unique. And I said, listen, I've talked to people all the time that have the same idea, and they didn't believe me. And I said, just stand there. Just stand here beside me. And that night, 3 people came up to me with the exact same idea, slightly different thing. And she was astonished. And I'm like, this stuff happens. Or you're not the only one thinking about it. The thing is, are you doing something about it? Are you going to move it forward? So if not, then you're just wasting your time. But if you are going to move it forward, do you talk to the Vector Institute? Do you talk to a bunch of people who can actually get behind you and support you in your technology or the way you're going about stuff, so when you launch, you have a little bit more momentum? So all those are different ideas to try and do your problem interviews and to get people together and to answer those questions. So I love the conference idea because it is really shooting fish in a barrel. When you've interviewed these people, they've talked to you, everyone in the room, all the speakers, all the experts in the field are looking at you because you put this together. You're the expert. You're the leader right now. It really it really works. It takes a little bit of time and effort, but if you're and you have a product for that market, it really it is like shooting fish in a barrel. So my question: I'm launching a service platform that will only be subscription based. How do I test? Um, Yeah, good. We talked about what is my growth hacking course starting. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna post that, and we'll do that in the next 3 weeks. I'll post that soon. My growth hacking course again, and I'll actually start all my live courses. So you'll see a few of them in the next, starting the next few weeks, so we can go delve deep. They're usually 3 hours long, where we're really going deep on a bunch of stuff. They are fire hose. You get a lot of information. People like leave it going, oh. But the goal is to give you 3 or 4 really actionable things to help you grow your business with growth hacking. With SEO, it's 3 or 4 actionable things to take home and start getting number one on Google with idea validation. It's giving you the tools and techniques and the playbook to go away and validate your idea. So all those things we can do. So they'll be starting soon. Thank you for asking, Imran. So from a subscription service, it's funny. I talked to somebody recently who wasn't doing that, and I convinced them to do that, and it completely changed what they were doing. They were going up for funding, and they had a couple of checks already, but they were trying to raise a whole bunch more money, and it was just a big slog. Trying to get funding and raising money is a big slog. And when we talked about subscription model, he said, listen, I've got enough money now. I can actually test this. We can build this. We can build the minimum MVP and get the subscription model started. And then if I'm ready, I can go for more funding when I have active monthly recurring revenue. So I would start with a subscription model. It really depends what you're doing, Imram. So message me on Slack if you're not there so we can have a further conversation. But if you can deliver, start a subscription model right away. And the other thing potentially to do is start it at a discount. And so I'm saying if you want to charge, $150 a month, you might want to start it at $50 a month or $100 a month for your first 10 signups or because that just gets people in the door and get you started. Second thing, you can always raise the price. You get people used to that it's 50% off, that the price is going away. You don't start at a price of $50. You start at a price of $150 with 75% discount or something, so you can take away that discount at some point. The other thing subscription models tend to do, Imram, and I don't know if you heard me say this before, they don't charge enough. And what I mean by that is a lot of people say that I want to charge a $49.99 a month or $29.99 a month. But their product's a little bit complicated. So here's the problem. I sign up for a B2B service that gives me some sort of reporting or analytics on my just-in-time inventory system. Again, I'm just making some random stuff up here. I want that report. I want to know it works, but it's going to take me a long time to get all the plugins to work and get the data up, and it may take me weeks. But if you charge me a white glove service, where instead of charging me $29 or $49 a month, where I'm trying to figure this crap out myself, you're charging me $150 or $200 a month, where I have a hands-on guy or girl or person who helps set it up, gets the stuff working for me, gets my reporting working just the way I want, which is really just front end stuff. That I'm immediately happy. I'm getting the reports I want versus the other person who's taken 2 months, is frustrated, is going to leave because is not getting the formatting the way they want, not getting the thing the way they want, and it's not sustainable for you to support them because you can't get them that level. So think about charging more and offering a better level of service to get people to that aha moment faster, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. So this has been, it's almost 1 o'clock. Is there any other questions? Yeah, hopefully I answered your question about protecting your idea, Moshe. Talk to an IP lawyer. PCK IP is pretty good here in town. Talk to my friend Alex Koch at Insight Legal. She is great. She mentors startups and has been helping startups in our community for 5 years. So, and she helps all sorts of startups. But if you're looking for on the cheap, PCK IP might be the way to go. But definitely get your idea and patent and start talking to like the Vector Institute here in Toronto or wherever you happen to be from an AI perspective to see if you can get somebody behind you. Talk to AI universities. When I say that, meaning um, if you get some brand or reputation behind you, less people are likely to jump in and steal it when you're versus when you're nobody. I don't mean to say that, but you're a startup, no one knows who you are. That's what happens. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully some of these idea validation techniques and processes and stuff I taught was good today. I'm going to next week. I'm going to specifically go through a few of these things. You know, I talked specifically about the sorting cards today. We're going to talk about visiting ghosts of startups past. We're going to be talking about imposter judo. We're going to be talking about concierge service. So I'm going to go through a few and give some examples of how you these techniques and how you can validate the idea. Hopefully you'll join me next Wednesday on the 12th, and we've got all sorts of stuff going on. Thanks for joining me today. Join us on Slack. Our Slack link is at TorontoStarts.com, because then you can hop on and ask me questions all the time. Or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to do that. When you connect with me on LinkedIn, mention you were on a webinar with me or saw you today or whatnot, because sometimes I get a lot of random people trying to sell me stuff, and sometimes I don't connect to those. So thanks a lot, everyone. Appreciate your time today, and we'll talk to you all soon.